Integrity Matters is a new segment on Trots TV, and joining me today is Graham Locke. Thanks for joining.
Pleasure, Amanda.
All right, first things first, one of the hot topics at the moment across Australia is the whips. Could you let us know where we are at with that in New South Wales?
Well, Harness Racing New South Wales has already met with the URHA and we'd encourage all drivers and trainers in New South Wales, Amanda, to work through the premium body to put forward an objective commentary in respect of where the industry would like to see whips in Australia and submit that to HRA for further consideration. My own personal view is that there's a little bit of water to flow under the bridge yet, and I'm sure that if the proper submissions are made, there's further considerations to be taken.
Okay, moving on, it's been fairly hot in New South Wales over the last couple of days. Could you shed some light on Harness Racing New South Wales heat policy?
Yes, there's a little bit of talk out in social media. Probably started last week when the Penrith meetings, or was it the week before? Now time moves quickly, but when Penrith and Maitland went back a couple of races because of the hot weather on those days. What the industry may not be fully aware of is that there's been now since about 2011 in Harness Racing New South Wales a hot weather policy or a heat policy, and essentially that comes into play where the forecast temperature at a particular site is going to be 38 degrees, 38 degrees Celsius as an ambient temperature. So that triggers certain things to happen. Basically, the club has got to ensure that they can provide the coolest environment possible. There's fresh water available to horses more so than what there usually is. There's, in the case of Penrith, for instance, in the barns, there's ice water available and so forth. Where fans are available, they're in play as well, and that includes both Menangle and Penrith, although the numbers at Penrith were limited. We also have two veterinary surgeons where practical operate on the particular race meeting, and the reason for that is that one veterinary surgeon is contained purely and simply on the welfare aspect. So horses that are travelling for in excess of perhaps an hour during the hot weather are checked on course, examined to ensure that there's no effects on the horse, and if there were, they'd be obviously considered and most likely withdrawn from the race meeting. Those horses are continued to be monitored until they go onto the track, so that the veterinary surgeons are satisfied that the horses that go on the track are fit and well to go and contest the particular race. Secondly, that the participants can understand the environment as safe as possible, and for those people at home that the welfare of the horses, we demonstrate that is first and foremost in our minds. All horses after a race are also examined to ensure they've taken no ill effects from the race, and any horse where there's heat stress being detected is provided with appropriate first aid, and the veterinary surgeon then takes it upon himself to supervise the cooling process of that horse. But I'm happy to say that in the last 12 months I think we've had one case of heat stress reported at a race meeting, and that wasn't at a day when the heat policy was in place. There are a lot of other things involved in whether a horse gets heat stress, and first and foremost is the condition of the horse, the fitness level of the horse itself. Then there's the prevailing conditions, the comfort levels on a day and so forth. And whilst the ambient temperature is one of the important aspects that are taken into consideration during a race meeting, also taken into consideration is the amount of shade in the facility, the humidity on the particular day, and also the degree of breeze that might be in the environment. And to my experience, and I've been looking at hot weather now since 2004, in February 2004 I first did a report to a board. The really, to me, pivotal aspect is if there's a breeze in the environment, generally speaking, the comfort levels are appropriate.
Okay, talking about horses' welfare, you wanted to talk about older horses?
If I could just conclude that and say that for the third time this season we've put the hot weather policy in place at Parks this afternoon, or this evening. Going forward, I've looked at all meetings through till next Monday, and at this point in time the weather forecast won't challenge us, so that's where we are at the moment with that. Talking about the welfare of the horse also, we've looked at other aspects of our business where we think that there could be scrutiny upon the industry as far as horses racing. So Horses that are racing twice in the one day, that's very seldom the case these days, but it is possible in remote areas. Where they race on 2 days consecutively, where a horse has had in excess of 200 starts, or where a horse is older than 12-year-old, we will have those, or where a horse is returning to racing having not been active for 12 months, we will have those horses examined prior to racing and post-racing to ensure firstly that they're fit and well and appropriate to race, and secondly that they've taken no harm following a race. If they have taken harm from the race, then obviously the veterinary surgeon ensures that the appropriate treatment, and if there were long-term effects apparent, would make a report. But that's just part and parcel of the industry, if you like, taking care of our horses and being responsible to our horses.
No, that's good. Now let's talk about out-of-competition testing.
Look, New South Wales now, Harness Racing New South Wales for many years, it's my understanding that we've had the approval of the board and the appropriate budget to continue to test horses out of competition, and that's part of the overall sampling strategy, which is by necessity a fluid vehicle. We don't necessarily want any of our participants to have comfort that they can predict what we're doing. But from time to time we visit stable properties and take horses in training on the stable properties. At other times we will target horses that might be contesting certain race meetings. There may be other reasons, response to intelligence or something from time to time, that we'll go and take samples of horses in what we call out-of-competition testing. And predominantly those tests are to examine whether there's things like growth promotants or hormones, EPO, anabolic steroids, insulin, and other sophisticated and artificial substances which may be present in the horse, which essentially have no place in the competitive horse. We did about 46 tests last week on horses that raced at Penrith on Thursday night, at Menangle on Saturday night. So those horses were sampled on the 2 days before. So they, in the case of Penrith, they received a visit from their regulatory vet, Dr. Colin Tonio, and one of our investigators, Natasha Ackland. For Penrith, that happened on Tuesday and Wednesday, and for Menangle on Saturday night, that happened on Thursday and Friday, and those horses were tested again on race night. And the results of those tests, if they don't provide any intelligence as far as prohibitive substances are concerned, would be compared to see whether there's any aspects of interest, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so and that's something, well, obviously we've got some big races coming up as well in New South Wales in the next month, and we also have the retention facility here.
Yeah, great racing coming up in the form of the Cordina Chickens Chariots of Fire and the the Ainsworth Miracle Mile, and the retention barn will be in place for both those Group 1 races, and I'm still trying to determine whether we've got capacity to have the retention barn in place for the Miracle Mile lead-in races, the 2 races the week before. If we do have capacity, then we'll be putting those fields in the barn as well, and our current intention, weather permitting, bearing in mind last year hot weather played a role in our plans, but weather permitting, those horses would go in at about midday Thursday for the Saturday night races.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for your time, Graham, and we'll catch up again soon. You look like you want to say something else.
No, pleasure, Amanda.